Speaker.
I call the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta.
Te Atiawa iwi tēnā koutou. Ka tika me rongo ki te pātuki-tuki o te whatumanua hei arahi e nei kōrero I mui a koutou I tēnei rangi. Mr. Speaker, I sometimes wish we had the benefit of hindsight so that we could make contributions to these types of debates, having seen what the impact of settlements would be 20 years forward. Sadly, that's not the case, but it got me thinking, especially on this bill. When I came into this House, the settlement process was very new. Our own settlement had transpired. In fact, when I read some of the historical record, much of the history is is similar. But the first treaty settlement bill that I was able to participate in at the Select Committee level was the Ngaitahu Claim Settlement Bill. And I remember some strong representations. It was a new process. People were very unsure about the step they were about to embark on in settling their claim. I remember Te Maiharua, Mokopuna of Hipa Te Maiharua, the prophet, coming and advocating for his people of Waitaha. And although he got a good hearing, again, with the benefit of hindsight, I think we might have just listened to him a little bit more to hear what he was saying, not to detract away from that particular settlement. In fact, in our own settlement, Ngāti Te would be the exemplar again, but to actually offer some insight as to how difficult it was a step to take to go down the settlement path. This is the first time in any debate that I've made, any contribution on any treaty settlement debate that I've made, Minister, where I have a real sense of concern, that I need to call on the moral fibre of the character of each of us as decision makers, as leaders, to ask the question, have we got it right? I want to support the settlement, and I will, because Te Atiawa have negotiated it in good faith with the Crown. Yet I feel that there is one matter outstanding that has not been addressed and must be. And it is the Peka Peka block. Because if we go back to our history, we could say in New Zealand, the first lands confiscated, that's why Maniapoto went to Taranaki to support the cause, the first lands confiscated was actually this block. And it's not good enough for us to think that we can have two different processes trying to come up with a remedy for a very difficult situation. Indeed, we're at a point in time in the Māori Affairs Select Committee we have got a parallel process. Yes, we've got the third reading of the Te Atiawa Settlement Bill today, and we will support it. However, we do it knowing that there remains reservations around an outstanding matter that cannot be simply washed over. Because if we want to truly rectify the wrongs of the past, we have to truly be able to be brave enough to challenge some very systemic wrongs that were created. Unlike Taranaki, who had to cope with reserves and leases being as well as raupatu, Waikato lands were just taken, sold off. We have a situation here today where if we ask the question, are we doing enough to restore mana to Te Atiawa about what wrongfully happened to them, we cannot neglect the issue of the Peka Peka block. It's here in the historical account of the settlement. I'm concerned for that reason, Minister. And I know that this House will debate at length through the Select Committee process and in the third reading where to from here. And I'm looking at the Honourable Member for New Plymouth. You know, as we do, that this is a difficult task. But it will draw on our moral fibre and character to ask the question, can we do more? Should we create space for a different way forward? Because if we were brave enough to do that, we can support the Te Atiawa Bill with a level of concern, knowing that the issue of Peka Peka remains an issue yet to be resolved, because we have an imperfect process dealing with it at the moment. So I'll say that not to detract from your day and the things that you want to see happen with this settlement bill, but in good faith, that as we make all our impassioned speeches about restoring the wrongs of the past and making sure that the Crown upholds its obligation, when we debated treaty settlements 20 years ago in this House, the big debate was around full and final settlements and durability. We can't quite have that conversation today with this bill because there is a matter outstanding. It requires a brave solution. It requires a different approach. It requires political intervention because if we just do it by the law, by statute, it will not happen. So there are people in this House that can make those decisions, and we're just a cog in the wheel that through our humble contributions and our good conscience, we're wanting to try and move this debate along. But I ask myself today, for this particular settlement for Te Atiawa, knowing the history, knowing where my tupuna stood in support of you, knowing beyond that the reasons why, I think more can be done. The reason why more needs to be done is because we need to get over the hurt of what Raupatu really did to our tupuna, but successive generations. Successive generations. And if we leave a significant outstanding matter in relation to Te Atiawa's Raupatu claim unresolved or imperfectly resolved, we are going to basically reconcile half of the iwi to a world full of hurt that may not be resolved within the iwi. How can that be? We've got a chance to do something as decision makers. I hope we do. That process is continuing. Minister, I know that you have a significant connection to this area and that you are working with, well, more than significant, super significant. And I know that you would work constructively across the House with us if there was some political bravery around this approach. The Select Committee will do as much as it can with regards to the local bill before us. But again, if it's left to a transactional approach of looking at legislation without dealing to the moral obligation of our country to get things like this right. Things like this. And there are only certain times with certain bits of legislation that you can stop and say, this is one of those times to get it right. It is one of those times. 20 years into the future, if I only had one chip to say, this is the time, it would be on this issue right now, to get it right. So, Minister Finlayson, I know your officials work hard and have worked hard through this process. You have expressed a keen desire to see the cohort of settlements from Taranaki to be progressed in unison because the maunga is the next step. But I say in all good faith to you and with goodwill, if we could do something more and better to resolve the significant outstanding issue of peka peka, which I believe is the first bit of Raupatu land that occurred in our country, then we would be doing the nation a favour. We would be doing the mokopuna of Te Atiawa a favour. We would be doing your mokopuna minister a favour. We would be doing all of our country a favour because we've stood up, braved the storm, found a different way, and we've had the moral fortitude and courage to do it because we knew it was right. If there was one time, this is it. And I say we should do it. Tēnā tātou katoa.